She was always bullied at school.
Oh no, I didn't!
The anger that this humiliation agitated was always restrained by her till the day when her father died. Her tears unleashed a demon that nobody was ready to face on that particular day.
You are so fucking...
Welcome back to Warner Series. I don't have many subscribers, but your single comment is a ray of hope to motivate me. It was one of those nights where everything just felt wrong. The kind of night where the world seemed too heavy and even breathing felt like a chore. She sat alone, fiddling with a little pocket knife, her hands shaky. The thought had been there before, but tonight it felt stronger, quieter, heavier. Maybe she'd just end everything. What was even the point anymore? Just as her mind teetered on the edge, someone stumbled out of nowhere. A random guy, completely drunk, walked right up near her, didn't say a word, and started peeing on the ground in front of her like some kind of animal.
Oh!
She was stunned. "What the hell is wrong with you?" she shouted, furious and disgusted. "Back off before I lose it." But he didn't care. He just laughed, slurring nonsense. Then stumbled off like nothing happened. Her name was Ryan, and if you asked anyone, they probably wouldn't even remember her name. She was the quiet one, the awkward girl who never spoke unless spoken to, and even then, barely said a word. People either ignored her or made her the butt of their jokes. On the bus, it was the same story. She was sandwiched between two bulky guys who didn't seem to notice they were squashing her. Ryan didn't even bother to complain. She was used to it. Used to being overlooked, used to being shoved aside.
For failing to acknowledge my potential.
At work, it wasn't any better. Her role? Basically to hang the boss's coat and fetch coffee. Nobody knew her name, nobody asked. She was like background noise, there but not really there. No one talked to her unless they needed something. That night, as she waited at the bus stop, she spotted her ex. For a split second, she smiled and waved, thinking maybe he'd say hi. Instead, he turned his head and ducked into a store, pretending not to see her. It was like getting slapped without being touched. That's when she started questioning everything, again. Her life hadn't exactly started out smooth. When she was just a kid, 9, maybe, her mom left and never came back. No note, no explanation, just gone. That's probably when she started feeling invisible. Her classmates treated her like a ghost. If someone bumped into her in the hallway, they wouldn't even say sorry.
Oh no, I didn't!
To them, she wasn't even there. The stress got to her early. Headaches, anxiety, hair pulling, it all became a habit. She tried reaching out to her older sister, but every message she sent just sat there on read. Not a single reply. Her dad was the only one who stuck around, even though he was really sick. One day, as they were talking, he noticed a burn on her arm. "You gotta start standing up for yourself," he told her between bites of toast she made him. "Don't let people push you around."
But stand up for yourself.
But just as she started feeling like maybe someone still cared, he took a bite of bread and started coughing violently. She ran for help, panicked. The nurse was in the middle of yelling at someone else and completely ignored her. That tiny delay, just a few minutes, was all it took. When she got back with the doctor, her dad was already gone. She held it together in front of others like always, even smiled through the pain. But inside, she was screaming. She wanted to hurt someone. Anyone. That moment lit a fire in her she couldn't put out. A craving for revenge started growing deep in her chest.
People I'd love to kill.
The funeral came, and her sister finally showed up, late as always. But at least she came. That's what Ryan told herself. She tried to be grateful, but that feeling disappeared when her sister dropped the bomb.
I thought you weren't coming.
She hadn't come to mourn. She came to get the house, the one Ryan and their dad had lived in. She already had a real estate agent lined up. To make matters worse, guess who the agent was? Julia. The same Julia who used to torment her all through school.
What is she doing here? She moved back. She wanted to pay her respects.
Just seeing her again made Ryan's head pound. That old pain came crawling back fast. The same fear, the same shame. And now she was expected to hand her home over to these two? Julia smiled like nothing had ever happened. Like she hadn't spent years making Ryan's life hell. Ryan's sister didn't even care what would happen to her after the house was sold. She just wanted money for a place in England.
You need to get over this Julia thing.
She hopped in a cab right after the funeral and headed to the airport like Ryan didn't exist. Ryan tried to take back some control. She went to her boss, hoping for a promotion, anything to improve her life. She handed over her resume. He barely glanced at it. "You're not really cut out for reporting," he muttered. "Too quiet. Too soft."
Yeah.
She sat back down at her desk, fuming. Her boss didn't even try to hide how little he respected her. Then a new guy walked in. The boss smiled, shook his hand, showed him around like royalty.
With some teas, could you, sweet pea? Hey.
After a 3-minute chat, he introduced him as the company's newest junior reporter. Just like that, it felt like someone had ripped away the last thing she was holding on to. So she did something unexpected. She followed the new guy home. She didn't really know what she wanted. Maybe just to scare him. Maybe more. "Whoa, sorry, didn't mean to startle you," he said when he turned and saw her.
Sorry, I was just...
Ryan mumbled something about forgetting to get his number for work. It was a weak excuse, but he seemed to buy it. Walking home that night, still frustrated, she almost got hit by a flying diaper tossed from a car window. Disgusted, she looked around for the idiot who threw it. But something else caught her eye, a giant billboard of Julia's face. Great, just what she needed. Her head started pounding again. Then she noticed the leash in her hand felt too light. Her dog, her only real friend, was lying still in the street. She ran into traffic to get to him, but it was too late. She held his tiny body, crushed. Her heart filled with something dark. This was all Julia's fault. Everything that went wrong always circled back to her. That night, Ryan buried her dog in the yard. She downed an entire bottle of vodka. While doing it, her head spinning and her blood boiling. Fueled by grief and rage, she stormed out to confront Julia. She found her at a bar. "Julia," she said coldly.
Julia!
Julia turned, surprised. "Didn't see you there." She didn't even remember what Ryan had gone through.
I didn't see you.
Her words were dismissive, empty. When Julia's old gang showed up, laughing and whispering, Ryan felt like she was back in school again. Small, powerless, humiliated. She couldn't take it. She ran out into the rain, soaked and trembling under a bridge. The knife was still in her pocket. Why was she so scared? Why couldn't she ever stand up for herself? Then a drunk man approached her. He muttered something crude. That was the moment something snapped. This time, she didn't freeze. She pushed him hard. He hit the ground, then rolled into the river.
Oh, what the fuck?
Gone. Just like that. Ryan stood there, stunned, heart pounding. But for the first time, she didn't feel weak. She felt powerful. The next morning, she felt different. Prettier even, stronger. Like she wasn't the same invisible girl anymore. But the fear came rushing back too. She'd killed someone. That wasn't something you could undo. She tossed all the bloody clothes into the washer, boiled the knife clean, scrubbed everything. Then, like it was just another day, she hopped on the bus to work. But of course, Julia's face was plastered inside the bus too. That familiar headache hit her again. When she got to the office, the mood was tense. Everyone was talking about the body found in the canal. "Hey Jeff," someone said. "What's the scoop?" Jeff smirked. "Got a live one. Guy was found stabbed in the river. Murder." Ryan just stood there, silent, pretending not to hear. But inside, her thoughts were spinning. Her secret was already out there, and it was only a matter of time before things got worse.
Have been attacking pedestrians.
As soon as the boss got wind that the guy who died had been murdered, he sprang into action like he just smelled breaking news.
Pulled from the canal this morning.
Oh, Jeff!
He barked out orders and told the staff to get moving.
Sweet pea, tea for Jeff.
Jeff, being the go-getter of the bunch, hustled and pulled together all the facts. The dead guy? Some dude in his 20s, stabbed 14 freaking times. Each wound could have been enough to end him, which made the whole thing even more brutal. Jeff didn't stop at just the basics, though. He wanted something spicy to grab people's attention. So, he managed to dig up the victim's home address for more background, anything that might make the article juicier. But Jeff had to bounce for a press conference, so the boss tossed the task to the newbie, Curly, and told him to take Ryan along for the ride. So off Ryan and Curly went, heading to the dead guy's place.
We're so sorry for your loss, Mrs. Lloyd.
When they got there, the guy's elderly mom welcomed them like they were family, offering snacks, drinks, the whole spread. Seemed like she needed to talk. Ryan picked up on something interesting while chatting. The guy had just gotten fired in a pretty shady way.
So they sacked him. Bastards.
Sounded like he didn't leave work on the best terms. Ryan excused herself, said she needed the bathroom, and instead crept into the guy's room. There she found a crumpled court flyer tossed in the trash. Apparently, the guy wasn't exactly a saint. Word was he liked to dig into his coworkers' private lives and spread dirt around the office. So maybe he had some enemies of his own. On the way back to the office, Ryan's phone buzzed. Julia, the real estate agent trying to sell her family house, was apparently bringing in buyers. The problem? Ryan still had bloodstains in the bathroom from her. She hit the gas and rushed home to scrub everything down before the guests arrived. Julia showed up shortly after, strutting through every room like she already owned the place, going on about redesigns and furniture. Ryan just played along, keeping her cool. Back at work, Ryan's little discovery about the victim's bad reputation gave the newsroom a whole different angle. What started out as a tragic murder story turned into a headline about a toxic office bully getting what some might call karma. The boss was thrilled, exactly the kind of clickbait drama he lived for. He was so hyped about the story that he treated everyone to drinks. But this time, something had changed. Ryan wasn't just some face in the background anymore. She was part of the crew now. The boss even personally invited her out. As everyone chilled, laughing and drinking, 2 cops suddenly showed up. Ryan's heart dropped. She thought it was all over, that they'd come for her. She bolted to the bathroom and locked the door, her mind racing. But it turned out to be a false alarm. The police were just running some routine checks. She let out a shaky breath of relief. Later that night at the bar, Ryan spotted someone who sent a jolt through her chest. The same man who had screamed at the nurse back when her dad was dying. If it weren't for him causing a scene, maybe the nurse would have helped sooner. Maybe her dad wouldn't have died. She waited for him to leave, then followed him outside. "Hey," she called, trying to sound harmless. "I lost my dog. Can you help me look?" He glanced at her, shrugged, and followed. He didn't see her as a threat. Big mistake. On her way home, Ryan caught sight of another poster with Julia's smug face on it. The rage boiled up again. She wanted that face gone. She stopped by a store to grab some supplies, cleaning stuff, gloves, bleach, but the cashier ignored her, too caught up in chatting with a friend. Then she accused Ryan of acting shady, like she might steal something. Another little moment of humiliation to stack on the pile. Next stop was a car repair shop nearby. She was looking for something like a tarp, something large and durable. She was about to leave when she ran into Sam, the guy who'd been wanting to buy her dad's shop. He smiled and invited her out for dinner, and despite everything going on, she said yes. She liked Sam. He was the only one who treated her like a real person. After dinner, Ryan went back to the place she'd been setting up for disposal. Everything was ready. She made a call to Julia. Calm, collected, she asked her to swing by. Even though the boss was annoyed, she came in late the next morning. He forgave her the moment she handed him coffee. She even brought pastries for the crew. Everyone was suddenly noticing her now. But when she saw the morning paper, her stomach flipped. The huge story, the one she practically built, had Jeff's name slapped on it as the writer. Not hers. She stormed into the break room to confront him, ready to explode. Jeff was nonchalant. "Whoever writes the article gets the byline," he said. "You're just listed in the admin credits on page 38. That did it. Ryan was furious. While Jeff went to the bathroom, she slipped something into his coffee. Nothing deadly, just enough to send a message. Then, out of nowhere, Curly popped up behind her. "What you doing?" he teased. "Poisoning the pastries?" He grinned, and for a second, things felt almost playful. Then the doors burst open and a middle-aged woman stormed in, shouting. She was the mom of the guy Ryan had interviewed. She had told Ryan about her son's kindness, but the newspaper twisted the story and made him look like a monster. Jeff stepped in, claiming he wrote the article. The woman yelled some more and then left. Later, Jeff found himself mysteriously locked in the restroom. Ryan walked by with a satisfied smile on her face. That evening, Ryan met up with Sam again. They had a great time, laughs, wine, the whole romantic vibe. But the next morning, just as she was humming and dancing around her room, the phone rang. It was the cops. They wanted her to come in and talk. Not under arrest, just to help with their investigation into the recent killings. Her knees almost buckled, but she quickly pulled herself together. If they hadn't arrested her yet, they didn't have anything solid. Turns out the park near the river, where she had taken care of one of her problems, had security cameras and access required a swipe card. They were checking records from the night of the murder. Ryan kept calm and explained that she'd gone for a walk after her dog was hit and after her dad's funeral. She kept her story tight, emotional, believable. But just as she finished talking, another call came in. Another body had turned up in the same river, stabbed the same way. Ryan wasn't a suspect yet, but she knew it was time to be extra careful. She decided to cancel the house visit with Julia just in case. But before she could even make the call, Julia messaged her first, saying she had to reschedule. Seemed like fate was still on Ryan's side. She texted Sam next, but he replied that he'd be working late. Said a customer was coming by. Ryan's curiosity got the best of her, and she drove down to the shop. And there she was, Julia. Again, turns out, Julia wasn't just interested in Ryan's house. She had her eye on the auto shop too. That was it. The last straw. Ryan kept her cool, smiled, said goodbye, and stole Julia's phone. Then she let the air out of all the tires on Julia's car. When Julia realized her phone was gone and she couldn't drive, Ryan sweetly offered to give her a ride. Julia didn't have much choice. She got in. They drove back to Ryan's place. "Since you're free," Ryan said, "why not take another look at the house?" Julia agreed, not realizing she was heading straight into the trap. Ryan led her to the basement and shut the door behind them. Finally, Julia was right where she needed her. The next morning, Ryan headed to the shop to clean up any surveillance footage. She casually unplugged the USB, storing all the video from the previous night, pocketed it, and walked out. Now it was time for her next move. She walked confidently into the boss's office. "I want a shot at being a reporter," she said. "I've got a lead, something big, a serial killer story. Exclusive." The boss didn't even hesitate. If it sold papers, he was in. But Ryan knew she needed backup. Informants, people who could help cover her tracks or feed her info if cops came knocking. So she made a plan. The other girls from Julia's high school clique, the ones who used to bully Ryan too, they were next. Ryan played her cards carefully. She messaged Julia's old school friends, acting like she needed help checking out homes Julia was trying to sell. The goal was simple: make them realize that Julia had gone off the radar. Once that seed of worry was planted, Ryan posed as a journalist working on a story about the string of local murders. She met with each of them, slyly steering the conversation toward the idea that maybe Julia was the killer's next victim. As they chatted, Ryan picked up a ton of juicy details. Not only did they give her stuff to use in her article, but they also didn't suspect a thing. She was smooth about it, taking mental notes and storing every valuable quote. Still, Ryan wanted more than secondhand gossip. She wanted to know what Julia's life was really like behind closed doors. So she found a way to visit Julia's husband. Maybe her life wasn't all sunshine and roses after all. Much to her disappointment, the couple seemed too perfect. Happy, affectionate, the kind of marriage that made Ryan feel sick. It frustrated her. Everything she told herself about Julia being a monster was clashing with what she saw. That night at the office, she stayed later than usual, pouring her energy into the article, shaping the angle that Julia might be the third victim in a chilling murder spree. When the final version of the story was ready and her name appeared on the byline alongside Curly's, they both jumped from their seats in excitement. But that moment of triumph didn't last. Her phone rang. Ryan's face tightened as she listened. Her sister, persistent as ever, hadn't given up on selling the family house. Worse, she'd sent a property surveyor to measure it, and Julia was still locked up in the basement. Panic rushed through Ryan like cold water. She sped home, arriving just in time to stop the surveyor at the door. Just as she caught her breath, Sam popped up out of nowhere, jokingly introducing her as his girlfriend. Before she could explain anything, Curly waved goodbye and left, leaving Ryan scrambling to untangle the web of lies she was caught in. Later that evening, while out, she spotted Julia's husband slumped on the street, clearly drunk, muttering to himself about his missing wife. Ryan's instincts kicked in. She offered him a ride home. At his place, while he stumbled through the door, she casually grabbed his hand and used his fingerprint to unlock his phone. Back at her place, she rushed down to the basement to share the shocking news with Julia. The man she'd painted as the perfect husband was far from it. Turns out, he'd been abusing Julia for years. The bruises, the scars, it wasn't some tragic accident. It was real. That night was the first time they truly talked. Julia, stripped of her defenses, admitted that she used to bully Ryan not out of hatred, but jealousy. Ryan had something she never did, a dad who cared. Making Ryan feel small was the only way Julia felt in control. Hearing that made Ryan's feelings even more complicated. Their conversation was interrupted when Julia's phone rang. It was the police. They had just questioned Sam about Julia's disappearance, and now Ryan's heart skipped a beat. But in reality, Ryan didn't have to worry too much, at least not yet. Detective Molly, the one quietly digging into the murder case, had begun putting pieces together. She remembered that Ryan said she was out dancing with friends the night of one of the murders. But when Molly checked the footage from the dance hall, it showed something else, an argument, a confrontation. Not a fun night out. She also noticed that Ryan's name kept popping up on articles related to Julia's disappearance. It was too much of a coincidence to ignore. Molly reported her suspicions, suggesting Ryan might be the serial killer, but her superiors brushed her off. No evidence, no case. They told her to drop it. Molly, though, was used to being ignored. Like Ryan, she knew what it was like to be invisible. But that worked in her favor now. She could investigate under the radar. She was already too late, though. The surveillance footage from the day Julia vanished had already been wiped by Ryan. That only made Molly more certain she was right. Meanwhile, Ryan returned to work, trying to shift attention back to the story of Julia's disappearance. But her rise at the company wasn't sitting well with Jeff. He was bitter about being pushed into the background. He claimed he had info from Julia's husband that could expose Ryan. That threat made her nervous. The town held a community gathering to rally people in the search for Julia. Since Ryan had written the big headline article, she was expected to show up. But during the event, she caught sight of Jeff whispering to Marcus, Julia's husband. She felt the guilt press in like a vice. Moments later, Marcus stormed up to her, shouting and grabbing her by the arm. He accused her of spilling coffee on his sofa. Clearly, he was trying to stir trouble. Ryan froze. Thankfully, Curly stepped in, pulling Marcus away before things got worse. Still shaking, Ryan later followed Marcus into a dark alley. She reached for her knife, but a voice suddenly called out from behind. Jeff! He saw everything, and in that moment, he realized the truth. Ryan backed off, her heart pounding. She made her way to the riverbank, where she pulled out the knife and scrubbed it clean. As she was about to toss it into the water, her phone buzzed. It was Marcus. His message was simple and threatening. You're dead. Ryan considered getting revenge, but then a new idea hit her. What if she framed Marcus for the murders? With Julia's history of abuse, the setup could work. But before she made her move, she wanted to see if Julia would go along with it. That evening, Ryan told Julia she was going on a date with Sam and asked for help with her makeup. That was the test. Julia could have stabbed her right there. She had every reason to, but she didn't. Satisfied, Ryan moved to the next phase of her plan. She and Julia drove out to a secluded villa, once Julia's home with Marcus. Ryan had turned it into a crime scene. She scattered trash, made it look like Julia had been held there for weeks. She even planted the knife in a drawer. Using Julia's phone, she sent Marcus a message, luring him there. The plan? When he showed up and saw Julia tied up, he'd grabbed the knife to rescue her, leaving his prints all over the weapon. But things went sideways fast. Instead of acting shocked or concerned, Marcus snapped. He accused Julia of cheating, screamed at her, then tried to hit her again. The situation spiraled out of control. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Detective Molly had followed them. Upstairs, Molly spotted Ryan through a window. She had all the confirmation she needed. At the station, Ryan tried to spin the story. She claimed she was an investigative journalist who caught a killer in the act and stepped in to save Julia. Molly wasn't buying it. She turned to Julia, who was already coached by Ryan on what to say. Julia backed the story, told them her husband had kidnapped her and was behind everything. Marcus, being dead, couldn't say otherwise. The police bought it. Ryan and Julia were released. The town treated them like heroes. They'd taken down a supposed serial killer and survived the trauma. Everyone clapped them on the back and thanked them. Ryan didn't end up with Sam. She chose Curly. They spent a night together, one that felt almost normal. But the next morning, while they cuddled, Curly casually mentioned some files he was sorting through at work. One detail caught his eye, a familiar knife, a match to a murder case. He turned to Ryan, stunned. She froze. It was the same knife she'd used during her meltdown, back when he was still interviewing for his job. Caught in the moment, Ryan admitted everything. The killings, the rage, the people who deserve what they got. Curly, heartbroken, couldn't wrap his head around it. Then a front door creaked open. It was Emily, Ryan's sister, back to settle the house sale once and for all. Ryan stared at her. Would she let her go? Or would she make sure no one else ever crossed her again? And that wraps up today's video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit the like button.